welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about artist terms. Now these aren't exclusive to just the furry community, they're sort of broadly used terms that a lot of artists use, but this is a furry channel so I'm going to say they're furry artist terms, yay! I did a video similar to this on other furry and fursuit terms a while ago, I don't know, I think it was like a year ago, and this has been on my list for ages, so I'm finally getting around to do it. PTU or FTU. These little acronym things you probably will see floating around on art groups and DeviantArt and all sorts of places. They stand for pay to use and free to use. These terms are generally used in reference to bases, which is another one of my terms. A base is just, most of the time, a line art that someone can either sell or give away for people to use, to fill in and maybe edit and put their own character into this already kind of designed piece of art. So a free to use base is just that, it is free to use. They often come with terms, you will probably have to credit the artist, sometimes they'll say whether you can or can't use it for profit, and there may be some other terms in there as well. It's always really important to check what the artist actually says in their terms of use for a base. A pay to use base is one that you have to pay to use. Most of these just have a flat price that you will send via PayPal or whatever. I haven't actually bought a whole lot of bases, so I'm not sure what are the different kinds of ones there are. The ones I've done have just been either PayPal or they've been on a site like Gumroad or something like that where you can just add it to your cart and then it sends you the file once you've paid. Pay to use bases also generally come with their own terms of use. Most of the time, again, credit the artist. You may or may not sell adopts, you may or may not be able to edit the line art, blah blah blah, all of that kind of stuff. Our next term is commission. A commission is basically just where you give money to someone and they make something for you. The term commission is used in all sorts of different areas. It's not just an art term. It literally is just pretty much a custom bought thing. So a commission in terms of art is you might send money to someone and they will draw something for your character or make something for you. It can be used in all different forms. Next up is an art trade. Art trades are generally between two artists where they will agree to draw something for each other as a trade. Often when people are looking for art trades, they will say stuff like, must be a similar skill level and, you know, must be a headshot for a headshot or a full body for a full body. Occasionally you might get different kinds of trades where someone might, you know, want to trade fursuit paws for a big piece of art. I do this occasionally. If I'm really looking for art, I will offer fursuit parts in exchange. But yeah, there's all sorts of different types of art trades. Draw this in your style, or just the acronym, which I can't think of right off the top of my head, but it'll be here somewhere. A draw this in your style is kind of like a little contest thing that a lot of artists do. I've actually never done one before, I just kind of know what they are because I spend too much time on the internet. But basically an artist will draw something, it might be their character, it might be a scenery, it might be, I know it could be a pop culture character or something like that, and they post it up as a draw this in your style, and basically this means that they're asking their followers to redraw the image in their own style and then repost it and tag the original artist. Some artists just do this for fun to see what other people do with their concept. I know some people do them as raffles and they might pick their best one or their favorite one and then reward that person with another piece of art or something like that. A ref sheet or reference sheet. A ref sheet is basically just a clear concept piece of art that shows exactly what your character looks like from multiple angles. They can be super detailed or they can be slightly less detailed. It doesn't really, it's just up to the person. But if you see somebody looking for ref sheets, then that's what they are. It's just a good way to show what your character looks like without any crazy shading or anything like that. So when you're commissioning an artist, you can send your ref sheet to them and they know exactly what your character is supposed to look like. Next one up is a mood board. Mood boards are generally like a collage of images that have a similar theme or a similar vibe or a similar mood. Again, mood board. Sometimes artists will use these to do mood board adopts where you might purchase an adopt just out of the mood board and then they create a design that's based on that kind of vibe. Or some people just use mood boards as inspiration. Mood boards are often used also as fillers on Instagram if you're a kind of person that likes to have like your one image down the center and then like pretty pictures down the sides. I'm too lazy to figure that out, but some people do mood boards for that purpose. Mood boards should generally be comprised of free to use images, especially if you are selling them as adopts. That's kind of like really important. If it's just for your own personal use, then I guess it doesn't really matter if you've just picked a pretty photo off of Pinterest, but if you're going to be selling something, make sure that the images are free to use. The next couple of terms are in relation to kind of bad things that can happen in the art kind of community. I'm going to start with the word blacklist. Someone who has been blacklisted has basically been banned from either a page or commissioning someone, or pretty much just kicked out of an area and never allowed to return. Artists will often blacklist customers if they are rude or they don't pay or they're scammers, that kind of thing. Obviously this goes the other way as well. You might blacklist an artist who is scamming customers. In fursuits, you can also blacklist customers. I've had to blacklist a couple people who have just been incessantly problematic. But it's basically just a term for kicking somebody out of some kind of area or group or event. The next term is art theft. Art theft is just that. It is stealing art. The most common type of art theft is literally just when people Google cute furry or furry dog, very nice, blah 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 blah, furry blah blah blah. It often happens with people who are new to the fandom, who don't really understand how art works, but the sooner you learn, the better off you will be. Do not steal art that is not yours. Do not just save images that come up on Google Images and use them as your profile picture and say, oh, this is my persona. Because that art and that character belongs to somebody else and you are not supposed to be taking that away from them. Art theft also goes another step further if someone has sort of maybe joined a commission group and they posted this art and said, oh, this is my art, isn't it so cool, you should commission me. And then people are like, pretty sure that doesn't belong to you, that is by some other artist, here's proof or whatever. And the person who stole it continues to be like, no, 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 this is mine, commission me, you'll get art, blah, blah, blah. I've also seen it go to the point where these people have actually gotten commissions and then they've just stolen more art and just said, hey, here's your commission. It might be like slightly recolored or something. It's all very wrong. Just do not steal art. Do not say something is yours when it is not. And remember that Google Images and Pinterest, the images on there are not always free to use. You have to actually find who made the image and find out if it's free to use. Along with art theft, we have tracing. Now tracing is kind of a fine line, and in a lot of the art groups I'm in, it's sort of, there's always arguments about it. My personal belief is that tracing is wrong if you are trying to sell it, or trying to pass it off as your own, or basically just lying. That is not good. I do think that tracing is okay if you are learning, if you're doing it in private, if it's just something you enjoy doing. I used to trace art because I wanted pictures of The Simpsons on my wall and I didn't have a printer to print them out. So I would just trace images of The Simpsons and then stick them on my wall. Things like that are harmless. No one's ever gonna know. It's okay, you're not trying to sell this commission and say, look, I drew The Simpsons. But if you are tracing and posting to art groups and saying that you'll take commissions, or like, look at how good this art is that I did totally off the top of my head, it's just not cool, because you're basically just lying about how that art was created. So yeah, generally just don't trace. If you want to trace for practice, I would recommend using photos, like photography, and maybe like take photos of yourself if you want to use yourself as a reference, rather than taking somebody else's art that they have created and tracing that, because it just becomes a whole lot more messy. Redlining. Redlining is a tool that some artists use. Well, I suppose it's not really a tool because it's what a person does. It's something that some artists do. If they're struggling with, I don't know, proportions or a bit of anatomy, or something just doesn't look right and they can't really tell, they might post in a group and say, hey, can anyone redline this for me to help me out? Basically what they're asking is to see if another artist or just somebody can save their image, download it into their art program, and literally take a red pen and draw over the bits that they think need some work. This can be really handy if you're struggling to see what's wrong with your image, but you know that something doesn't quite look right. It's good to have a bit of fresh perspective to just say, hey, if you change this here, or you made this bit a little bit wider or something, it can just really help you to make your art look a lot more coherent. And next one is another acronym. I pronounce it YIC. I know some people just say YCH. I just say YIC, it's easier. It stands for your character here. Now this is kind of like a base, but in the way that the artist is the one filling it in and they're not selling the actual base itself. But generally a GIC is just where an artist will draw a base basically and then post it and say, you know, if you pay me X amount of dollars or whatever, I will fill in this base with your character. So it's pretty much like an art commission, but you already kind of know what it's going to look like because they have the base drawn out already. They might do some additions, some people do additions for extra money, or they say no additions or whatever like that. It's always just up to the individual artist. But basically, yeah, GIC is just your character here. So they just got this little image and they will take your character and put it in the image. A badge. A badge is a type of art. I think it's more common in the furry community than just like the art community itself, but anyway, a badge is a type of art. I think it came from the types of badges that you wear at like conventions or meetups and that kind of thing, which is literally like on a lanyard and it's a badge. It's normally your character. I found that most badges generally have like a name underneath them, so I think they were generally more common for conventions and stuff for people to be able to identify you just with your little badge on your lanyard. But it's kind of a broad term now for just like a headshot that has a name. They often come printed out and laminated, that kind of thing. I have heaps of badges that I don't actually use as badges, they're just like stuck to my wall. So it's just kind of a broad way of saying this kind of style of like a headshot with a name. Our final term for today is one last acronym, or rather two last acronyms. We've got NSFW and SFW. In my head I always just pronounce it as NSFW. But it stands for Not Safe for Work and Safe for Work. You've probably seen this around before, not exclusive to the art community, it's all over the place, but if you don't know it, you don't know it. It's basically a Not Safe for Work piece is something that would contain adult content or even things like nipples that aren't inherently sexual but like Facebook hates, that kind of thing. They might be tagged Not Safe for Work, just so the audience knows that whatever's underneath might not be appropriate. They're generally censored on a lot of platforms, but yeah, they just give you a little warning. And safe for work is just the opposite. It is something that is safe for work environments or just being around regular people. So nothing that's inappropriate or explicit, that kind of thing. Sometimes you might see people looking for not safe for work artists because they want to have a cool picture drawn of their characters or whatever. Yeah, it's just another type of art that is out there. Please remember, if you are under 18, pretty sure it is not legal to commission not safe for work art, so just don't do that, please. Don't get any artists in trouble. That's just a little asterisk for the end of the video. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it might be helpful to some newer furs or just people who aren't particularly well versed in artist terms. If you have any other terms, feel free to leave them in the comments. You might help someone else out. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!